Chapter 7 of The Problem Club. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mary Scarno, Walsall, West Midlands, England. The Problem Club by Barry Pain. The Shakespearean Problem. The failure of the members to discover the identity of Leonard, the last problem that he had set them, meant that, at the 49th meeting, the prize was doubled, and the cheque of £220 awaited the lucky winner. Leonard, formerly known as a capable head waiter and an astute setter of problems, had revealed himself as the grandson and heir of the Lord Herngill, who had founded the club and had been elected to membership. He had described himself further as a poet. He had now travelled up from Yorkshire for the express purpose of attending the first meeting after his election, and the dinner with which the proceedings opened showed him, as had been expected, a charming, accomplished, and quite amusing companion. Young Heseltine and the Reverend Septimus Cunliffe were, respectively, chairman and secretary for the evening. The chairman, equipped with a bound copy of Shakespeare and certain other forms of refreshment, read out the terms of the competition. They were longer than usual and ran as follows. Members are required, in the course of conversation, to make undetected quotations from Shakespeare, and to detect and challenge the quotations which are made by other members. The score is 2 for making an undetected quotation, and 1 for detecting and challenging a quotation made by another. The highest score wins. If any member challenges a quotation from Shakespeare, words which are not a quotation from that author, he will have 1 deducted from his score. Any member with a score of -3 is out of the game. The method of challenging will be by raising 1 hand, when the chairman will temporarily arrest proceedings and investigate. Where several members raise their hands simultaneously, all will score the detection or be penalized for the failure, as the case may be. Otherwise, only the first hand up can score or be penalized. A quotation must consist of more than 4 words, or it will not rank as a quotation. The words must be given in their correct order, but otherwise any attempt may be made to disguise the quotation. Any member who has made an undetected quotation shall notify it to the chairman at the earliest opportunity, while it is still fresh in the memory. Detection, to be valid, should be made immediately, say within 20 seconds of the utterance of the quotation. The chairman will stop the competition when, in his opinion, all members have had a fair and full chance of speaking, and on all disputed points his ruling is absolute. "Yes," said the chairman, when he had read out the above. "Our new problem setter, the mysterious editor of the Pig Keeper's Friend, seems to be a rather lengthy beggar. More like a round game than a problem, to my mind. I can imagine literary circles playing it on winter evenings. However, I think we've most of us got the hang of it. There's double the usual amount of boodle in the jackpot, but all the same, I'm not sorry to be debarred from competing. I had a good deal of Shakespeare boosted into me by schoolmasters when I was a boy, but I fear that it ain't stuck to me. Well, it's all up to the highbrows tonight, and I'll call on our old friend Leonard, who's our new member, Lord Herngill, to start the ball rolling, and our padre to keep the score as directed." "Well," said Leonard, "I can't say that I am a stranger here, but I'm certainly a new member, and very glad to be. Now, I told you that I was a poet, but a writer of poetry is not necessarily a reader of poetry. I can't say whether he ought to be or not." He paused to relight a cigarette. "To be candid." "A challenge," said Mr. Cunliffe with uplifted hand. "The quotation is, 'to be or not to be,' rather cunningly broken up." "Admitted," said Leonard. "Then," said the chairman, "the secretary will score 1 to himself." "At the same time," said Leonard, "I should like him to score 2 to me. The words, 'I am a stranger here,' are a quotation from King Richard II, Act 2, Scene 3. Northumberland speaks them, and the quotation was not recognised." This was verified and found correct, and the score allowed. The chairman turned to the Honourable James Feldane, who was sitting, or to be accurate, reclining, in the chair next to Leonard. "Go ahead, Jimmy," he said. "Very well," said Jimmy wearily. The quality of mercy." 5 hands went into the air together. "Jimmy," said the chairman, "it looks as if you were pretty considerably challenged by 5 hands simultaneously. You, Major Byles, being one of them, will tell us why." "Why?" exclaimed the Major. "Because it's one of the best-known quotations in Shakespeare. I won't swear which play it comes from, but everybody knows it. Let's see, how does it go? 'The quality of mercy is not strained, but droppeth like the thingamy of the something or other.'" "Any defence, Jimmy?" asked the chairman. "Somewhat," said Jimmy. "I said, 'the quality of mercy.' I admit it. I glory in it. But that's only 4 words, and it's laid down that 4 words do not make a quotation." "That is so. I fear that the Major, Dr. Alden, our only KC, and our 2 artist members must all have a -1 recorded against them." What I was going to have said when they interrupted me was that the quality of mercy differed in some material respects from coffee that has been made with a percolator. Same thought as Shakey's, but a different mode of expression. 5 of you have now lost a life through being premature. You need to be careful. A score of -3 puts you outside of any chance of 220 of the very best. And I'm dangerous tonight. I'm out for blood. The brindled cat winds slowly o'er the lea. Anybody like to challenge that? Wildersley said it would make a good title for an Academy picture. But nobody asserted that it was Shakespeare, not even Jimmy. "You're an enterprising lot," said Jimmy disdainfully, "but I'll give you one more chance. Satiate at length, and heightened as with wine. That's more than 4 words. Any challengers?" "Yes," said Sir Charles, holding up his hand. "I don't know for certain, but it's got the flavour of the period in it. Anyway, I'd sooner lose 1 life than let you score a triumphant 2 for it." "Then you'll lose the life. It's a quotation, all right. But it happens to be a little bit that I cut out of the best end of Paradise Lost by J. Milton, Esquire." And Jimmy leant back in his chair satisfied. He had scored nothing for himself, but he had done something to spoil the chances of 6 other men. The chairman turned to Sir Charles. "Don't you think that Jimmy's an irreverent young blackguard?" he asked. "Well," said Sir Charles with an air of quiet dignity, "Jimmy is young and I am old. As we progress on life's journey, we old men cease to expect to find universal agreement with our views. We know that our opinions are our own, but cannot be all the world's." He paused and sighed. "A stage or 2 farther on, and Jimmy may come to think, as I do now, that And here suddenly Sir Charles broke off and chuckled.
"Well, I'm blessed," he said. "I never expected to do it. I knew this wasn't a little nest of Shakespeareans, but I did think that you'd spot the best-known line in Shakespeare."
That air of pathetic dignity had merely been a bit of acting, but the acting had been so good that it had distracted the attention from the words. Otherwise, members must have found in Sir Charles's remarks the well-worn tag that all the world's a stage. It scored 2 for Sir Charles, thus putting him on the way to a win, at any rate. A few minutes later, another well-known quotation very nearly came through, unscathed. Somebody, speaking of Leonard, had said, "Leonard or Lord Herngill, whichever he prefers to be called." Leonard smilingly said that a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. He admitted afterwards that he had not had the slightest intention of quoting Shakespeare. He had merely uttered a platitude because it happened to be apt. Though as soon as he said it, he recognized his own quotation. Unfortunately for him, the Reverend Septimus Cunliffe had also recognized it, and by challenging it, added 1 to a score that was growing slowly but surely. He attempted no quotation himself, and never challenged unless he was sure. To put it plainly, he played for safety. "Yes," said Jimmy Feldane, plaintively, commenting on this incident. "One of the worst points about Mr. W. Shakespeare is that he made such a lot of proverbs. I don't want to brag, but I suppose I've read as little as most people, and I expect that even I don't keep clear of Shakespearean quotations altogether. I'm not aiming at him, but every now and then he flies into it, so to speak." The supercilious Mr. Quillian had provided himself with a stock of quotations from Elizabethan dramatists other than Shakespeare, and did deadly work with them. They were challenged and brought the penalty on the challengers, and having thus inspired a dread of traps, he introduced 3 quotations which really were from Shakespeare, and 2 of them got through undetected. Pusely Smith, who generally welcomed a chance of a friendly duel with Quillian, remained silent, watching him with sardonic amusement. The game became very strenuous. There was the closest attention in order to spot any veritable quotation. Every strategic dodge that had been thought of during the previous month was brought into action to induce a challenge that would be penalized, or to get a quotation through undetected. Several members reached -3 and were ruled out.
"This game is too much for me," said Mr. Matthews, on losing his 3rd life. "It's too subtle. The American game of draw poker with 3 jokers in the pack and one of the players a crook is simple, transparent, and childlike compared to it. However, one of the joys of being out of it is that I can get myself that little drink that I have long needed." And he made his way to the side table. "Mr. Chairman," said Sir Charles, "I think a 10-minute interval would be welcome. It's wearing work to keep on thinking what one is saying." His suggestion was warmly supported and accepted by the chairman. Some members followed the comfortable example of Mr. Matthews. Some chuckled over the clever caricatures drawn on the back of bridge markers, with which Wildersley had been occupying his enforced leisure. An excess of zeal over discretion had put him out of the game at an early stage. All consulted the secretary's score sheet. Quillian was leading with a score of 9. The secretary and Sir Charles were each at 8. Major Byles was 3, and Pusely Smith 1. Jimmy Feldane
was -1, and Lord Herngill, who had at one time reached the noble score of 4, had by reckless challenging brought himself to the perilous position of -2.
"Can't make it out," said Mr. Matthews to him. "You used to set all our problems. You ought to be a flyer at this kind of a game."
"It's an easy job to set problems," said Leonard, "and to set them so that you can solve them. But it's a different thing altogether to solve the problems that somebody else has set."
"Oh, well, it's an opening thing still. Quillian's just leading, but I don't believe he'll pull it off. Shan't be surprised if old Bunford is 220 the richer before the evening's out."
Proceedings were now resumed. "Come now, Pusely-Smith," said the chairman. "We've not heard much from you tonight."
"Afraid of being challenged?" suggested Quillian.
"As a rule,"
said Pusely-Smith angrily.
"I am told that I'm much too venturous. However, my learned friend, if you want to talk, go on, and I will wait for you. The chairman called on me to speak, not you. And as a matter of fact, I had a thing to say. But let it go. It may make trouble later. And then you'll remember I told you what would come of this. Your blessed challenges, indeed. You may think you can do everything, but I know you can do very little."
Quillian stared at him, aghast and perplexed.
Really?" he said. "I don't understand this outburst. I had not the slightest intention."
But here he was interrupted by Pusely-Smith's laughter.
"All right, old man," said Pusely-Smith cheerily. "Don't worry. It was all spoof and part of the game. Thanks to you, I've just made 5 undetected quotations from the work of the bard. You're my benefactor. In fact, as the Orientals say, you are my father and my mother, and I am the son of a dog."
"5?" said the chairman. "It hardly seems possible." But Pusely-Smith made out his list, and it was found to be quite correct. The 5 quotations were as follows. "I am much too venturous," King Henry VIII, Act 1, Scene 2. "And I will wait for you," Julius Caesar, Act 1, Scene 2. "I had a thing to say, but let it go," King John, Act 3, Scene 3. "I told you what would come of this," The Winter's Tale, Act 4, Scene 3. "I know you can do very little," Coriolanus, Act 2, Scene 1.
"It's a great coup,"
said the chairman. "It puts you right at the head of the list. Closing time is imminent, gentlemen, so if you have anything else to say, get on with it."
"Well," said Quillian,
"somebody ought to have spotted him. It's really more our carelessness than his cleverness, but I should imagine that's the last undetected quotation he'll be able to get through tonight. You're watchman now."
"By Jove, yes,"
said the Major. "Since you talk like that," said Pusely-Smith, smiling, "I will make another quotation. By the way, how long will you give me? I should have asked you that before, of course."
5 minutes,"
said the Major.
"And then perhaps we might close the competition if the chairman sees fit."
A general agreement was reached on this point, and Pusely-Smith was enjoined by the chairman to get on with it.
"I've finished, thanks," said Pusely-Smith. The words, "I should have asked you that before," are a quotation from a play called Romeo and Juliet. It's the second scene of the first act, Romeo speaking.
The quotation was verified and advanced Pusely-Smith's score to 13, a lucky number for once, thus leaving him an easy winner.
"And," said the young Heseltine, the chairman,
as he handed him the cheque. "Considering the way you must have sweated through tons and tons of absolute Shakespeare during the month in order to pick out the little bits that didn't look like quotations, I'm not sure that you haven't earned about 5% of it." The chairman now opened the sealed envelope containing the problem for the next month. In this, the talented editor of the Pig Keeper's Friend had been quite brief. It was entitled The Impersonation Problem, and the terms of it were as follows. "It is required to be mistaken for 6 different people in the course of 1 hour. "You don't use any unnecessary words about it," said Mr. Matthews. But it may be remembered that the editor of the Pig Keeper's Friend was also a poet, and real poets never use unnecessary words. End of Chapter 7. Recording by Mary Scano. Walsall, West Midlands, England.